Hello,
Yes.
everyone. Welcome to the Roundup. The rise of initial coin offering, in short referred to as ICO, is presenting a promise of level funding field for not only innovators and startups to raise necessary funds in cyberspace with just an idea for a product or service to be delivered in the future, but also allows anyone with an aspiration to be an investor the ability to invest desired amount very early on in digital funding initiatives. Now, since billions have already been raised using ICOs and ICOs are global in nature, it is important that we understand not only the rapid rise of initial coin offerings, but also understand what the rapid rise of ICOs will mean to respective nations and its current funding systems. This is especially important as there is no global consensus that provides safeguards for investors anywhere across nations. Understandably, there is a growing concern by many nations that these investment opportunities could be dangerous scams and should be looked upon with suspicion. While there is a growing concern that the ICO bubble is about to burst, there are many investors who continue to flood into ICO's market in hopes of making a fortune. To discuss the risk and rewards of ICOs further, I am delighted to welcome Ransu Salovaara to Risk Roundup. Ransu is the CEO of Token Market, an exchange and research platform for tokens of blockchain technology projects. He is also the CEO of an investment company, Revoltura. In addition, Ransu is a professional trader and head of European trading at Onam Investments. Ransu is based in Gibraltar. Welcome, Ransu. We are so very honored to have you on Risk Roundup.
Hey, great to be here.
Wonderful answer. So, as many nations seems to be so concerned about ICOs, let me begin by asking you this very fundamental question. Are ICOs legal across each and every nation?
Short answer is no, not everywhere. Like the South Korea has now put some limitations there, and then there's a full-on ban on ICOs now in China. And then in America, they are legal, but they're considered to be securities offerings.
Yes, very true. Now, as entrepreneurs continue to take advantage of ICOs across nations, what are the risks and rewards do you see ICOs bringing for investors?
Well, of course, last year it brought a lot of wealth around, because I think it was something like an 80% return was an average return, and we issued about 300 million worth of ICOs that we managed for our clients, and then those are now trading on their 2-3 billion valuation. So that's 10 times up. So of course the reward was significant over the past year, but so are the risks. So this is very experimental way of funding a company and very experimental way of investing on those tokens.
Yes, that is a great potential. You're absolutely right. Now, with the promise of any specific product or service that is proposed through a white paper to solve any problem. I mean, there are so many different problems that entrepreneurs are targeting across nations by using the power of blockchain. But there is still a concern that how to hold those innovators or startups to those promises, because anybody can write a white paper. I mean, that goes also for the business plan that is used to get investment from venture capitalists. So it goes on irrespective of whether it's ICO or IPO. The basic promise in the proposal that is submitted to the investors, that is where the biggest evaluation that needs to be done. So when so many investors across nations are worried now that this ICO investment craze is almost a bubble. Even in Wired magazine, there was an article in last year that the bubble is about to be burst. So how do you convince the investors, or whether that there is a way to convince investors that this is not a bubble?
Well, there's two things. There's of course the rapid growth, like a massive growth of some sector, which is here, and then as we saw on Ethereum and Bitcoin values, of course they were in a sort of bubble, because they are now half of what they went on the top. End of last year, the top numbers were. So always when a lot of investors suddenly come to the new market, and new market is very hard to read. So it's hard to analyze these companies. There's a chance to, or very hard to say where the value is. And last year, it was very much white paper based investing. So there's a startup guys, like, 1, 2, 3, few founders, white paper, and that's how they raised money. So now the market has quickly evolved from that to where these companies that we work on about 10 ICOs currently. One going actually live within 2 hours. And these ones are now established startups with already seed funding in place. They have a team. They have a legal advisory. So they all have a law firm doing all the terms and conditions and everything. And they have worked months and months already on not just a white paper, but also on prototyping and coming up with the actual products. So the market has shifted from last year's very early states, like that the ICOs are a replacement of seed funding almost, and then suddenly a company gets 10 million, 20 million or something, and they have never gotten funding before. It moved to this where now the companies are more mature, and we see it almost more like a replacement of a round A.
I see. So that the market is evolving, and that is a good news for the investors, and that there is a way that they can look at more data, that is provided by who is on the team, and whether they have a proper structure to their company, and what they are proposing is there a feasibility that the product or service would be able to, the entrepreneurs will be able to meet those goals. So I'm glad to hear that there is an evolution in how the the investors can evaluate these entrepreneurs and the startup companies. But because ICOs are largely not regulated by financial authorities, there's also concern that the funds, if any investment fund is lost due to any fraudulent initiative, it would never be, the investors would never be able to recover. So as investors are having a hard time telling the difference between investments and fraud, what would you tell the potential ICO investors that what should they look for? You just gave some points about that, now the market has evolved and it is more than the white paper. They're looking at, whether they have a legal team, whether they have a proper advisory board, they have proper structure to the company, things like that. So in addition to that, from investment perspective, what would you tell the potential ICO investors what they should be looking at?
Well, of course, it is that you should never invest or buy these tokens. Like these are if they are app tokens, they really are not investment. They are purchases of the tokens that you can use in the application later. So this whole investing debate always goes on, and many law firms advise you not to use any word of investments, not any promise of a future appreciation, because that appreciation happens then on the third-party exchanges when the token trades on those. So of course now the first thing is that you have to understand that this is experimental sector, experimental way of investing, and you should never put more than you're willing to lose.
Yes, very true.
Not a replacement. This is not a replacement for stocks and bonds or doing any kind of buying ETFs or any mutual funds or stuff like that. This is where you take if you're a portfolio manager or you manage your own money. This is where you take depending on your risk appetite, you take 1% to 10% of your investable money, and you go with that, and then you spread it over to many projects, and you study the projects, you read them. Blog posts, articles on the forums and everything, and talk to people, and that way you make your decision. But it's definitely spreading it and buying so little that if you lose your money, it's not the end of the world.
Yes, I think that's an excellent point that you made that this is not a secondary market trading. This is more of angel investors or venture capital kind of investing opportunities, and investors have to evaluate from that perspective. Now, for investors who are looking for investment opportunity, it is important is it important for them to know the differences between each ICO and the tokens they offer, because there are many different types of tokens that are being offered. It could be utility tokens or asset-based tokens. So how can...
Asset-based tokens are then full-on securities. So currently there is no secondary market for those. So if you buy security tokens that people now talk about, and we also preparing for securities offerings, everybody has to understand that is then next generation now on ICOs. And currently the exchanges that are doing app tokens, they are not regulated to trade securities. So that requires now new regulatory approvals for many of these exchanges before that happens. And until then, if you invest on a tokens that are securities, then those are basically illiquid assets because you cannot trade them.
I see. No, that's. I'm glad to hear about that distinction. Now, it seems that ICO is where a cryptocurrency goes public for the first time. All these tokens are they evaluated as a currency, or are they? What is the structure and what is the basis of evaluation whether any of these token, utility token or security token or asset-based token or equity token, how are those distinctions made?
Well, that of course goes like on every investment, on every early stage investment is always done on the basis of the promise from the future need for that token. Like look at Ethereum now. Ethereum is used to execute a transaction on Ethereum network, right? So that is a very kind of tangible use, and since there's a certain amount of Ethereum tokens only in ethers in the world, then that makes it that there people count on that there will be always a demand for those tokens. So it's a very much. You have to look on the future because these companies they're not even supposed to, because this is not stocks or bonds investing, so there is no balance sheet to look or anything like it. It doesn't have to do anything with that. It has to do with the tokens future usage, and because of the usage, the value goes up if there's a lot of demand for the token to be used. Then, of course, many tokens can start to live a life of their own as a tradable assets, like a kind of a new asset class.
Yes. No, I hear your point on that. Now, I mean, we have witnessed over the years that irrespective of cyberspace, geospace, or space, I mean, there are always criminals there and there are always crimes, being committed. So how do criminals manage, when we talk about the ICOs, how do they manage to issue coins or tokens without anybody being able to see the scam?
Well, this goes to everything in life that you can make now online. You can make a lot of stuff very convincing just by creating a sleek-looking websites and putting there people's pictures and having advisors and everything and writing something that doesn't you have no intention of executing, right? So this is a general challenge of anything that you put on the internet, anything that you see on the internet. You have to take it's the same as a fake news. You have to take it with a grain of salt and decide what do you believe and what you don't.
But are there any indicators from token sale that can raise a red flag to investors? Is there anything that seasoned, investors like you or, people who have a lot of experience, that they are able to see that whether this token that is being offered or this cryptocurrency that is being issued, whether there is, any base to that or whether this is genuine or it's just a fraudulent scheme? Is there any indicator that we should be looking at?
There's a lot of indicators for that. Of course, there is when you read their white paper, which basically describes what their business is going to be and how the token is going to be used, then you always, the first question that you have to ask is this doable, what they say? Can it even be executed? So you have to use kind of a common sense here, or then not just the common sense is enough because we talk about very technical stuff. So then you have to have a technical knowledge or you have to ask around. The great thing is that there's a lot of these Telegram groups and different kind of crypto forums online where you can go and see generally what smarter people than you on that subject say. So I always there's no there's no way to just look at the white paper and look at the people and decide that's good. You always like have to do more in-depth research. And we, like, when we've done now over 30 ICOs that have raised, as I mentioned, that over $300 million. So then, and those tokens are now, still trading well, even though that the market is today on a slump. But on these ones, of course, then when we work with the startups, we do the full-on due diligence on them. So we make sure that the people are really behind there. We talk with the law firms. We check all these things. So of course it's kind of that job is partly ours to do, just like on angel investing. Of course, angel investors and venture capital firms, they do the similar due diligence to the projects before they take them on or before they invest. And then there is no, to your question, there is not one, two, three few things that you can look. Of course, you have to, the very basic things is that you go and you look at that. Do they really have a company? Can you find it on a company's house? Then can you find these people on LinkedIn? Are their LinkedIn profiles saying the same thing as they are saying on the website?
I see. I hear your point on that. Now, we know that these cryptocurrencies are based on distributed ledger technologies, and that is what enables anyone to purchase or transfer their cryptocurrency holding to any other person across nation. Now, that makes it very complicated because this is global in nature. So, if there are few nations who are, banning ICOs and banning cryptocurrencies, then how do you see this working, the very nature of the ICO working across nations, and what is the nature of the regulation for ICOs that entrepreneurs or investors need to be mindful about as they issue ICO, across nations?
Yes. So on this one, of course, there is and there won't be anytime soon, probably never, a global overlying regulation to it. Of course, this will be country by country. They will do the decision. Maybe at some point, EU makes an overarching, like EU has a securities, most of the securities law is harmonized across the EU. And that's why you can issue stocks and bonds European-wide. So there's always countries that will, ban cryptocurrency out of and tokens out of the fear that the black market and all these, or that they just want to be on a control of monetary stuff and control of the stock market and so forth. But there's 200 countries in the world, so I see this much more as a great opportunity for startups to raise money globally. Then, because the investor base is global, you can actually now, even if you live in India or in Finland, you can now invest on the same terms as someone from UK or from Spain or Germany, on great companies that are coming from those countries. So the global access to startups is a fantastic thing, and that will hopefully, the next Googles and Apples are funded this way, and then these people are on for it from the beginning.
Oh, absolutely. This is it is leveling the playing field because so far only very few privileged one will be able to get investment from VC firms, and even irrespective of whether there are brilliant ideas or entrepreneurship available or startups from across nations. So this is leveling the playing field, which is amazing. But let's say the China has banned ICOs. Now, if there are investors in China who want to invest in ICOs, how do they go forward? What kind of legal framework will be available for them to be able to invest?
Well, they are still, they're legal. So now it is that they are basically, we need to block them out. So our tools when investing on ICOs have a now block that you cannot invest if you come from China.
So they cannot invest. The investors cannot take part in ICOs.
That's their country's decision, and we of course always respect if we know that something is illegal in that country. That's our job then to respect those local laws.
I see. I was under the impression that China doesn't want any ICOs to origin in their country, but I was not aware that they do not want anyone to invest in ICOs that are offered across nation, because this is, changing the, playing field, because you are excluding, China is excluding their entire country not to take part in any of these initiatives that are happening across nations. So they will be missing out on
Yes,
many opportunities.
exactly. But the problem there was that in China there were so many scams, and it was more of a gambling there, and then even went further with the kind of a mindset that if you invest on scams, it's like, haha, you got fooled, stupid you. So that's so they in a way I see the Chinese authorities point here that it went so crazy that if 80% of ICOs are scams, which is not at all the case generally on a quality ICOs, then they have no other chance. They cannot just start picking out all these bad ones. They have to basically stop it all, then come up with some sort of an feasible regulation, and then work with that one, and then launch, then kind of accept it or allow it again.
Yes, no, that makes sense. If the 80% of them are scams, then that is a cause of great concern. It seems Russia is also banning, ICOs completely. If we look at Russia and China, and I believe South Korea also, they are.
These countries ban a lot of other stuff as well, so they are not exactly considered to be human rights experts or good places for human rights or anything else. So it kind of fits into their profile, in my opinion, that they do that sort of things. And then when we look at the Western countries, then here they set more of the good policies.
Yes.
Japan is doing that. I visited there in January and met the government people, and they had a great approach. They were taking a careful approach to exchanges. So they give exchanges licenses now, and they are limited. The licensed exchanges are limited towards 50 to 20 top cryptocurrencies, and then now they're looking into ICOs and other stuff. So you can do it, and many countries are now doing it exactly right. Then on the forefront, there is a place like Gibraltar where we are based, and our headquarters is. And now Gibraltar already started in the beginning of this year came DLT license and DLT distributed ledger technology regulation. So there you already are we are in the process of applying for that license, and so are many other top companies. There's like 30, 40 companies now worldwide, top-notch companies that are applying for the license because they want to be under good regulation that is forward-looking and quick on setting it up, so that you don't have to wait for years.
Yes, no, definitely. So it seems Switzerland is also very open and liberal about ICOs. United States is a little strict, but they're still open, and they want these innovators to go forward.
But public ICOs cannot be done now in America because those are then considered securities. So that then you would have to have a broker-dealer license,
right? And
you would have to get approval from SEC.
But for utility
or user exemptions,
the utility tokens are still acceptable, right?
Yeah, they're acceptable if they are full-on utility tokens, but this situation with SEC evolves all the time. Then came the SAFT agreements, safe agreement of future tokens, and now that one is kind of moving away slowly. And so in America, it's still accredited investors can invest on ICOs, but the public ICOs have not happened now since some months.
True, very true. What about India? I don't hear anything about India. Are they banning the ICO market or cryptocurrency, or what is the?
We had one client that has a big footprint in India, which is Kasha, and they did a great fundraise somewhere there between 17 to 19 million or something like that, and. But there also government has put the restrictions there, so it's definitely not as bad as China or South Korea, but they are clearly working there on a regulation and trying to figure out in what way they should let everyday investors invest or buy tokens. And that is always the question, is that on every country, basically, well, not in China, but every country, then accredited investors, professional investors can invest, because they everyday investor, and protecting them from scams and from going on a gambling mode and putting all their savings on some ICOs. That is the every regulator's challenge, to protect the investors.
Yes, it is a big challenge, because if you allow everyone to become an investor, and I hope that someday we reach the point where anyone from across nation can invest in whatever they want to invest, but that brings security risk. And here I'm not talking only about the whether they gamble all their money or those kind of risks. Those security risks I'm not talking about. I'm talking about the computer literacy, because these are digital tokens, and if this if this population or the investors, who common day average man, if he invests and if he's not computer savvy, doesn't have enough knowledge about how to protect themselves on computers,
Well,
or then it's a big risk, because they are becoming themselves like their banks, and they have to provide the security. Now they can be hacked, and these tokens, who owns the tokens, or whether that has any identity tag to that, we don't know that. So anybody can steal all those cryptocurrency or tokens that are on anyone's computer, and if they don't know how to download that, or keep the wallet secured, or put it in cold storage, then they will be losing everything that they have saved in their life. So there are very complex security challenges that we see with cryptocurrencies and ICOs. If everyone gets involved in this, because computer illiteracy is a big problem.
Well, now there's like two different things that needs to be always counted in. One is investor protection, as so that there's only good ICOs. They are somewhat regulated, and also educating people that they are not stupid and put all their life savings on one deal or try to get rich. So of course that's that, but this then goes down to that one, that this is experimental investing. This is same as crowdfunding, same type of investing, that you should always use be very cautious. But then comes the security part. Okay, now you ended up buying tokens, and now comes a technical security of the tokens. And of course, there we know that these transactions are not reversible. So we have to always have a top-notch security with our wallets, that where we hold the tokens, and the way that we handle them, that when we send them to exchanges or travel with the laptops and all that kind of stuff. So this security, it's the same as overall your online security. It is that you have to take these steps and follow them, and with the passwords, with the virus scanners and everything, and how to manage the passwords and these passphrases and everything. You can easily learn those from online, from the even YouTube videos, but how to do it correctly, and that way you are relatively safe.
Well, let's hope that everyone is willing or curious enough to protect themselves and take all the necessary steps. But the anonymity of this market is also a big concern, because
it's not anymore.
It's not anymore.
No, because it has been always a concern, but now all the ICOs that we do, all of them are KYC'd. So, like for example, we have now in an hour and a half we have a autonomy ICO going live, and there we have whitelisted in advance 50,000 people who want to buy tokens. So they have already done the KYC. They have given their passport information to us using proper KYC systems.
So although all those people's identity will be tagged with the tokens, number of tokens that they have?
No. They when they get the tokens, then this money that the company now raises is as good as raising, dollars or pounds or anything like that. That we know the identity of all all the buyers, and then there's also for larger amounts, then there's AML processes in place.
So if the buyers of those tokens, if they transfer those tokens to someone else, will you be able to see that these tokens have been transferred?
No, that is of course the strength of a cryptocurrency, that these trades can be done, and so then they go to exchanges and stuff, and then of course, just like you can give dollar bills, you can go to bank and get completely fair dollar bills, and then go and start to do drug deals or something like that with it.
But that's where the security risk emerged too. So if you know the identity of all those people who are buying, all the investors who are buying these tokens, why not to create digital identity tags so that if the tokens are transferred, then that trail is known, because that would create such a secure environment.
Yes, but it is more of the, it's not tag individual. So all the tokens are the same. So they are fungible. So they are the same tokens to everybody. They don't have any tags. They don't have any information attached to them that who is whose. They're not numbered in that sense. And that is the beauty of it. That's what makes it so great, the system. But then at the same time, now we are working on this. That we use a KYC and AML as a ICO platform. Then exchanges, all the leading exchanges are now, they have some sort of KYC in place, or they will have shortly, because they all gonna get regulated, and then that's gonna be the same KYC anti-money laundering regulations that are now on a banking and on online gaming will come in place. Very similar ones. So it's kind of marketplace participants' job to do the KYC on these changing points. We don't want to become the global, like a big brother system where everything is named that, okay, this is your dollar or this is your token.
No, I mean, not at this point, I understand that, but as we go forward and this becomes more and more popular, and as it disrupts the entire investment field, I hope that there is a way to see the trail of where this token goes, who owns it, and where it is transferred.
Absolutely. So we are working now on a security tokens. So these will be basically shares of a startups. So let's take that as an example. So soon, our belief is that not every company can issue app token, because that app token doesn't make any sense. So then they can go and use exactly the same method as they do now with the ICOs. They can do the share offering. And then when they get those shares, they have done the KYC and they have become now shareholders. Then they have a dividend and voting rights, right? Or there might be restrictions. So all this can be managed very transparently on blockchain. And then, for example, dividend payments only goes to tokens that have been that are under KYC and have an owner. I can still give you company shares without any registration, but you don't, before you do the KYC for it and become a recognized owner of the tokens, then you don't have the voting rights or dividend rights.
I see. So no, that's a good development, and there are. So I was under the impression that there are a lot of these tokens that are issued that they don't give you the equity of the company, or you don't.
So today, app tokens. It's very important for everybody to understand that app tokens today are basically one of the 5 exemptions to securities law. They are in-game currency. That is like if you play World of Warcraft, it's just these goldens or guldens, they are exactly the same thing. Or then they are closed loop payment system, where like you go to amusement park and you get tokens at the door and then you use them for different rights. Or then they are loyalty program, air miles, all that stuff. Or then software license or straight out donation. So this is the current current ICO tokens basically needs to be one of these. Then if you start to pay dividend or royalty or anything, boom, it's not an application token anymore. Now it's a security.
I see. So who is responsible for ICOs currently? I mean, do you see across nations there are any institutions that are managing the ICOs or who are responsible for ICOs?
Well, we manage the ICOs we have now done that for 30 clients. So but we are technical.
You do for the clients that come to you, but what about every other ICO that is being issued?
Well, this is of course the problem, because this is not the problem, but it's not a problem that of course you cannot, like, regulators don't want to generally regulate stuff too early. But nobody expected last year that suddenly ICO market is going to be 5 billion. So it grew up super fast. So then it's now a catch-up game to come up with the regulations and, buyers protections and all these things. But this happened so quickly that it was much better that it happened this way, that then someone would have shut down everything in the beginning of last year and say that, okay, everything needs to be regulated. This innovation that happened over the past year or so has, in my opinion, much outweighed the risk and loss of the money. This has been a super important time in the history of small and medium enterprise funding, and the way that technology startups and even technology works in the future with the blockchain. This has been a super important, like a kind of a breakthrough time of getting us to the next level and having a globally funded companies and global investor base.
Yes, no, absolutely. I mean, we don't want the unnecessary government regulations come and restrict the growth of any innovation or any innovative product or processes, including the way we raise funding through ICOs. So this is disruptive. The whole model is disruptive, and it's probably going to eliminate venture capital someday, if not immediately. Eventually it will, because it will give power to every individual who believes in certain projects or certain technology or initiatives, that they will be able to invest. So the dependency of getting funding only from selected few organizations is going to be eliminated because of this disruptive ICO offerings that we are seeing in the market. So yes, we do not want very strict regulations, but we need some sort of accountability and ownership and responsibility.
And this comes from the self-regulation.
Yes, self-regulation. I hope it works, because I mean, in principle, it looks great that, yeah, let's all self-regulate, let's all be responsible, accountable. But human nature is human nature, and there are always criminals among us who wants to take advantage, and they will, when masses are going to be involved in a moment like this, we have to be very cautious whether self-regulation is going to work. But let's talk about the role of government. What role? I mean, if we are talking about not just regulatory agencies, but even the government itself, what role do you think that the government will need to play in the coming years, if not now?
What role? Well, I see that the role is exactly what's happening now on these jurisdictions that are advanced now and looking into whole, digital assets, meaning, app tokens, and then tokenized securities, and then cryptocurrencies. So of course, it will be very similar to online gaming and banking, kind of a mix of these two in many ways. It will be everyday investors, and at the same time the amounts of the deals can be very high. Like now we've seen these $1 billion ICOs and so forth. So I think that the regulators now need to just follow up quickly with basic stuff. These KYC, AML requirements. So of course, banks will get upset and want to close down, all the competing platforms like blockchain, if they see that that's unfairly stealing their business. But if blockchain startups and all this ecosystem now gets KYC, so that you cannot say that, oh, that's just a money laundry place, then there is not much that the banks can do. They just have to innovate together with us. So that you cannot, basically genie is out of the bottle. Now we just have to control it, and it's going to be a fantastic new kind of a financial world there.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, there is a great potential and there is a great promise. But if we are able to manage the security risk that comes with this, great innovation and the great process that we have, we are developing, then we'll be able to get amazing, benefits and amazing rewards. But there are still a lot of variables that needs to be evaluated and managed so that, the investing community, especially the common man, that they don't, lose everything that they have. But let's talk about the structuring of ICOs. How can we break down any ICO from concept to commercial offering? What are the steps that will be involved, and what the entrepreneurs, innovators need to be mindful about?
What do you mean? Like, how do you break it down?
Let's say, for example, I, as a innovator, or I have some idea about security risk, and I want to issue some. I want to I want to issue ICO and get some funding from the global community who have the shared vision or shared, principle or the parallel goals that I have or as risk group has, and they want to, invest into what we are doing. This is just example, not that I want to go for ICO, but then I have that idea, but how do I take that idea and what steps I need to cross, or what steps I need to manage to be able to issue that ICO and start getting investment from all the stakeholders across nations?
Yes, so it all starts just like any other startup. You need to have a business idea that solves some problem. Okay, so the business idea is on the heart of it. You're like, okay, what is the problem that I'm going to solve? How am I going to solve it? More cost efficiently, quicker, better, easier than anyone else has done. So you really like, your positioning. Why do you think that your startup should exist when there's millions of startups in the world, right? That's always the starting point. So you cannot just skip that and go straight to the ICO. But then once you have figured that out, then you have to think that, okay, how is my company linked? And is it a blockchain-based company? Will I have my own blockchain, or will I, use something like Ethereum? And then, do I need a token there? Can I do the same thing? So you cannot just say, oh, I'm going to do a bookshop and start to sell books with my tokens, because that can be done with a PayPal and Visa and MasterCard and Ethereum and Bitcoin and 600 other cryptocurrencies, basically, almost. You can use to some platform to buy something. So you need to have then a real need for why your token needs to exist. So token model is where most of the companies then struggle. And token model can take months to create. It can be as much work as the actual business plan to come up with a good token model. How many tokens should exist? What is the price? And then most importantly, you cannot just say that this replaces $1, for example, on the platform, because then it doesn't have any speculative value and nobody will invest on it. So why should people then bother to invest on it on ICO? Because the usage will go up and there will be more demand, and therefore it can go up 10 times or 100 times. So it's very difficult to now on the current market to come up with a good token model that people believe on.
I see. So is Ethereum the more popular platform for issuing those tokens?
Yeah. So while Bitcoin is like a digital currency and a digital gold in that way, the biggest of its kind, then Ethereum has a smart contracts. And these smart contracts enables all the token issuance and everything, creating these kind of a rules-based tokens.
So how much time from an idea, from a concept to issuing ICO to commercialization, What is the time frame we are looking at? Does it take
Well,
like 6 months? 1 year?
last year people did everything super quickly. They went from white paper to ICO within weeks or few months. Now all our ICOs currently they work on the ICO 6 to 12 months. So
That,
it's
that's more reasonable because you don't need that much time to evaluate everything properly. Few weeks. What do you evaluate in few weeks?
no, exactly. So you have to. So now our clients, they work first on the white paper, then they work with the law firm on the terms and conditions, and then with us on a strategic advisory and token models and when to do a private sale and when to do a public sale and all these pieces, and then they start to do the first, normally the private round, and that can take alone 3 to 6 months.
Yes. Yes. No, that's reasonable.
Nobody goes anymore straight to public offering and just believes that the people will buy. You always have to make sure that you have an initial traction. If the, so to say,
Yes.
hedge funds and venture capitalists and these people are accredited investors, if they don't believe on your deal, it's very hard then to convince anyone else.
Yes, very true. No, that makes sense. Now, when we talk about these ICOs, are they a means to raise funds only for cryptocurrency ventures, or any kind of project or any venture can be funded?
Well, it is too early for many of the other projects, and so we really focus now on the blockchain innovation. So our startups that we work with, they all have a blockchain in a way or another in the heart of their business. It's then you would have to come up with something like CryptoKitties, which was a huge success, but that is a different story. So my saying is that we're still on the early stages of a blockchain innovation. So now we're still building kind of fundamental services and very much on this sector. And then when we go more to just a general commerce, I see that that's where the security tokens comes in place, because the app token doesn't make sense for most of the non-blockchain based companies.
Yes, no, I understand that. Now, how do you determine if a token is a security token or a utility token? What is the process that helps you determine what kind of token would be this?
It is really the job of a securities lawyers. So then the law firm always looks at. They basically write it off as okay, this is exemption to securities law. This is fine. But general rule on that one is that if you do any security features, of course the Howey test is one in America, but then if you promise interest, dividend, or royalty, or more tokens because you bought some tokens, all these things then makes it pretty much a security.
Yes, now I understand that. Now, are there any... Sorry, go ahead, please.
Yeah, so but this is really that, we only work with the companies that have engaged law firms that have an expertise on token sales.
I see. So that's a prerequisite that they have to go through all that process before they come to you.
Yeah, and then we work with the law firm. We hear from the law firm that, okay, this is now all cleared, and only then starts token sale. Before law firms clear it off, nothing, no money is going to be raised with the tokens, using tokens.
I understand. Now, are there any guidelines available for designing tokens and how to structure the sales for those tokens? Because we see so many complex challenges arising because of the faulty token design or faulty process in the sales.
Absolutely. So there's, of course, there's millions of things that you have to, not millions, but there's tons of things that you have to count on. What is the token price? How many tokens you're going to issue? How many tokens you're going to keep for the company, for the team, advisors, so forth. Then what is the different, if you have different pricings there on a different stages of the sale. And then, of course, how does the token function? What is the using? Do you use it for some sort of an voting, or is it that you need one token to register something on the blockchain? So we have there's tens of different kind of token functionalities that can be then matched and mixed depending on a case.
Yes.
On the platform that they can be used. So it really goes on the platform first. What is the platform's functionality? How can you integrate token to that platform's natural flow, that how people can interact there?
So how many platforms are there other than Ethereum? Is there a lot of platforms, or just
well, now when I say a platform, that every single startup is in a way platform, because when they create so when you create an app token, that app token is functionable on your business. So then you generally have we call some sort of a platform in your business where that token is used.
Yes, very true. Now, any idea, any of this project that wants to issue ICO? I mean, because it's a digital world and it happens in cyberspace. There is always, people say that it's advisable that you build a community of users and stakeholders that would be interested in this, because it's basically global in nature. So while these ICO, it allows us to build an ecosystem of users and stakeholders based on this integrated token that provides utility to users and payments and the service providers and all that. What are the risks and challenges you see emerging as the market matures?
Well, first of all, like every company that does a successful ICO, they have to have a community of users or community, because the platform is not usable yet, community of interested people who are looking forward to that business to launch, right? Or the platform to launch. So it always starts from the community building. You cannot just average ICO that we have done has between 2,000 to 8,000 investors, or token buyers. Let's call them token buyers. Then those guys have to already have to somehow engage them in order for them to take their Ethereum from their wallet and give it to you, so that they get in exchange tokens.
But you don't always see that, right? I mean, you see a lot of these companies, I see, even in America, there are a lot of, these initiatives popping up where they get really excited, get few people, together, and they want to start, the process of issuing ICO. And I don't see that ecosystem that they have developed where, there is a passion behind it.
Those are the ICOs that fail. If they don't attract people's interest, nobody's gonna put the money in.
Yes, that's the cause of great concern, and I see that I'm witnessing some ICOs that are being developed right now, and I don't see that ecosystem behind them, and I don't see the passion from the global community to be part of something that they are trying to build. So I see your point in that probably is the first step, that you do need to have that ecosystem. You do need to have that shared goal, shared purpose, and
have a community. You need to have some sort of a community. It's the same for any business. It's not just an ICOs. If you start on any business, you start a bike shop in your town. Of course, you will not start a bike shop unless you know that there's a group of cyclists who sees that there's a demand for another bike shop.
True, but this is different because, see, so far venture capitalists, they would take an idea and they would turn that into a company, and they would invest in those ideas. But here, even if you have an idea, the investors, the people who are investing, they're not all very smart, savvy investors that they could see the vision behind it. So this is a very different kind of investment and very different kind of ownership here.
Yeah, so that is always the challenge on a equity crowdfunding, or crowdfunding, equity crowdfunding, everything.
Yes.
It's there that when you ask a lot of instead of going to venture capitalists and asking for 10 million or few venture capitalists, then you decide to go and that you ask 2,000 to 8,000 people for the same money, right?
Yes.
Similar money, because it's from venture capitalists. You normally you give equity away. Here you give tokens away, so it's not necessary. It's not one-to-one comparison in that sense. But of course, then it is like kind of everybody's job here to become more savvy, that in the beginning now anything goes and people invest, and anything went up and people thought, oh, I'm a great crypto investor. Then when the market goes slump, everything goes down, and they start to see that, oh, businesses don't work. So then suddenly everything is more risky. Of course it was risky from the beginning. Like even on the startups, what is that, 70 to 80% of the startups fail.
Yes.
Someone even says that it's a 90% that don't see 5 year mark. So this is definitely not any different. This is not like
no, very true. I mean, from that perspective, it is not different. You are right about that, that, ideas can fail, irrespective of whether it's funded by VCs or whether it's funded by, common man, ideas could fail. And that is why there is a need for organizations like yours and mine and everyone that can look at the different risks, understand what are the, whether what they are saying, the promise of technology that they are promising, a product or service, whether that is, feasible. So that feasibility study, it always goes, you are right about that, and there is no other way to go around it. But because there is so much distrust right now for ICOs across nations, some legitimate, some it's just there is a scare tactic going on across nations because this is disruptive in nature, and whenever there is disruption, the status quo wants to prevent that. So there is a lot of fear about these ICOs, and there is a lack of trust. So how would you or your organization go around to bring that trust back to ICOs, or to give that enough confidence to not only the entrepreneurs, innovators, but investors?
So first of all, the trust is not gone. The trust is gone from the overall, like, individual. Like, today we're launching an ICO that has 50,000 people have gone through the trouble of doing the KYC for it. So clearly they are trusting that the starting point of this ICO is good, right? So and then about 5 other deals that we work on, those all have already some millions in from the venture capitalists or angel investors or early token investors. So there is still trust, but the trust is our work and the startups work to make sure that there is something to trust to. That all these building blocks, business model, token model, team, initial funding, and legal support are all in place. So without those, of course, you don't have you don't have a case to go and do an ICO.
Yes.
You need now all those, and then you also you need now working prototypes or more advanced plans than just a white paper. So the ideas don't get funded anymore.
Yes. Now that is a good development, that you don't want to just invest into something based on a white paper, because white papers don't have all the answers. So what is your organization? You had the organization Token Market. What does your organization do, and what role does it play into this ICO ecosystem?
So we do everything from in the beginning, strategic advisory before the ICO. Then we do all the ICO technology. So this way, startup, who is doing most likely just one ICO ever, then they should not develop their own software and smart contracts and token issuance tools and everything. We have the whole stack of tested tested ICO technology, that including KYC processes, bounty programs and such. So this is the one of the most crucial things, because now this technology is the one that will then, together with the wallets and vaults and multisigs there behind, this is the one that then will manage the funds that comes in and manage the tokens that goes out, and make sure that the right people get right tokens. So this is, in my opinion, one of the most crucial things of the ICO. If this fails, everything fails.
Yes, so you provide the complete solution for anyone who has an idea. They can come to you, and you not only provide the technology, but you also provide the services of escrow account and legal
Yeah.
whatever they need to go through
Yeah, we introduced
processing.
the law firms. Yeah, we introduced that we work closely with the law firms, in a different jurisdictions, and of course, then we also help with the marketing, with this, these community things. So there's a lot of things that we have learned out of the, 30 ICOs, and we have 3 offices, Helsinki in Finland, then London, and here in Gibraltar. And these together, then we have 30 people working on these cases.
So you have your blockchain also and the smart contracts and everything.
Now we use Ethereum. So we have developed all our own smart contracts, and then that works on the Ethereum network.
So
And then importantly on this, that you cannot come to us with an idea, because we get still 10 to 20 ICO requests a day, and we pick from those, 3, 4 max a month.
I see.
So we're very picky. So the companies have to be on a certain level to enough to impress us, and not just to impress us, but we kind of have now the good networks where we figure out that are these deals feasible.
Yes. So you have your own feasibility team and process to go through that screening, and then you decide whether you want to pick that ICO or not. So
We have
how much?
a compliance officer in house who makes sure that all the funds and everything is done on a compliant way. Looking forward to that we're going to be regulated. So we already act as a regulated company.
I see. That is really good to know that. Now, if someone comes with an idea to your organization and you decide to take that idea and to help them get through the ICO, how much does the whole process cost? What is the nature of?
Well, this then goes that we don't take any advance payments, or we don't take any retainers. We take a percentage from the token sale as our commission. So we are on the risk together with the startup.
That's really good.
Yeah. So we take a few percentage on that, depending on the deal, and this is why we also have to be picky, because then otherwise we work 3 to 6 months, and if nothing happens on ICO, we don't get paid.
That makes sense. Now so you are sharing the risk as well as rewards, and that's a good way to go. In any project or initiative.
Absolutely, because this then enables us to, for example, on ICOs that we see that are not ready to go live, then we can postpone it, and we can tell the startup, okay, let's spend now a couple more months on fine tuning these things. Like let's build a more community. Let's fine tune the initial the white paper, or let's look for more cornerstone investors.
Yes,
and that is the result. The kind of calmness there, and taking your time with the ICO and not rushing in is the recipe for success, definitely.
very true, very true. So what would you like to tell our global viewers and listeners, and especially those who are concerned about not only the rapid rise of ICOs, but those young innovators and entrepreneurs who are so passionate about solving big problems that our world is facing at any level, at the global level, national level, local level? What would you like to tell those young innovators who are, having so many ideas to solve a lot of problems, and where especially these kind of ICO tools that everyone needs funding? So what would you like to tell them that, how they can go forward?
Well, the first that they have to know is that starting is easy, finishing is hard. It's easy to start a project and be super excited about it, but then when the tough times comes and it takes months and months and months to fine tune it, find investors and fine tune your business model, and start to find a team, start to work on it. It requires patience. It is really, the thing that it's easy to start, easy to be excited in the beginning. Everybody is. So you have to be willing then to push it all the way to the end. That's the first thing. So think very carefully. But then that said, I think that there's more opportunities than there has been probably ever. Like like these disruptions on anything from banking, finance, any kind of these networking platforms, then there's everywhere there's opportunities are left and right. So also pick your opportunity well. Don't go and start another loyalty program platform, because those are like the kind of quick ideas that everybody gets. So think, really find where there's a real market and then test it. Then go to some venture capitalists that say that hey, I don't need your, or some other smart people, and they say that hey, I don't want your money, but I want your advisor. Is this feasible?
Yes. Yes, very true, very true. So thank you so much, Ransu, for participating in Risk Roundup today. We appreciate your thoughtful insight on ICOs and, more importantly, for you and your organization's effort for leveling the investment field. Our global viewers and listeners will benefit tremendously from the understanding you provided on the current state of ICOs and how to structure ICOs. So even if a single individual or entity can understand the complex security challenges facing the ICOs and prepare themselves or protect themselves based on the understanding they received from this discussion we had today, this Risk Roundup dialogue has been of service, and we thank you for that.
Thank you very much. It's great to talk to you.
Wonderful. So, with the rapid rise of ICOs, it is important that investors are mindful of the potential risk involved in some of the fraudulent ICO schemes that we see across nations. Risk groups, cybersecurity, geosecurity, and space security risk research centers are created for this very reason, to identify, evaluate, and manage the risk facing NGIO in CTS, that means nations, its government, industries, organizations, and academia in cyberspace, geospace, and space. We at Risk Group believe that risk management, security, and peace, they walk together hand in hand. Though security is related to management of threats and peace to the management of conflict, risk management is related to management of security vulnerabilities as well as management of conflict. It is not possible to conceive any one of the three without the existence of the other two. All three concepts feed into each other. We believe that the security we build for ourselves is precarious and uncertain until it is secured for everyone across nations. Tradition becomes our security, so if we build a culture of managing risk effectively, it will lead us to security, and security will lead us to peace. Let's manage the existing and emerging risks together. For more information on the Risk Roundups, to watch the Risk Roundup videos, or hear the Risk Roundup podcast, please go to riskgroupllc.com and do not forget to subscribe and share. Until next time, I'm Jayashree, host of Risk Roundup, signing off. See you next time. Thank you.